It's a busy one this morning. You're watching BBC One Daily, and Anna and Linda make the most of a pub, giving it a full-on festive feel. The House Invaders get to work in a full-on hour-long special up after the news, while Bob's got the festive questions and the answers in a Wipeout celebrity Christmas special, and that's at midday.
This Christmas, BBC One has exclusive coverage of the royal family.
Say bye-bye.
Bye-bye, baby David.
Bye-bye, baby David.
Bye-bye, baby David.
Bye-bye, Debra, baby.
The royal family, Christmas Day at 10:10 on BBC One.
An update of the morning's main news stories now on BBC One with Anna Ford.
Good morning. Two women will appear at Crawley Magistrates Court this morning, charged with the attempted murder of Danny Herbert. The 13-year-old received multiple stab wounds near his home at Littlehampton in Sussex early on Friday. Danny is said to be in a critical but stable condition on a ventilator at Guy's Hospital in London. A 26-year-old man has been arrested in connection with the murder of Vicky Hall. The 17-year-old was killed after leaving a nightclub in Felixstowe in September last year. The British Medical Association has renewed its call for boxing to be banned after a fighter was critically injured in a contest on Saturday night. Paul Ingles in a coma after being knocked out during a world title fight in Sheffield. He's had surgery to remove a blood clot from his brain. There's to be £1 billion worth of new investment in North Sea oil projects. The government is granting licences to 4 major schemes. This will boost production and guarantee 2,500 jobs in Scotland and Tyneside over the next 15 years. Senior nurses are likely to get pay rises above the rate of inflation as part of the government's attempt to stop them leaving the profession. Hospital staff are expected to receive details of their pay settlement later today. But it's thought less experienced nurses will not get as much as the 5% rise that they had hoped for. 40 towns around the country are about to find out which of them is to be granted city status. The award is being granted by the Queen to mark the millennium. Reports this morning say that Wolverhampton, Brighton and Inverness have been the successful applicants. Elizabeth Hurley has been fined £70,000 by the American Acting Union for breaking a strike. The actress was labelled a scab by protesters after filming a commercial during industrial action. She's agreed to pay the fine. That's it. I'll be back with some more news in an hour.
Hello there. It's a rather cold and cloudy day for today. The mist and fog across eastern areas rather reluctant to clear away, and there could well be some rain just skirting through the channel. Best of any brightness, I think, out towards the west, but very little of that winter sunshine. Shouldn't be quite as cold tonight. We'll see some cloud and rain moving in from the south. As we go through tomorrow, that wetter weather will work its way northwards all the way into Scotland by the end of the day. The wind starting to pick up and turning a little milder. Bye for now.
Deck the Halls, House Invaders is up next.
From fish porter's son to multi-millionaire Hollywood star.
An extremely rare degree of talent.
The face of 60s cool.
For an actor of my generation, Michael Caine is just a complete hero.
A career spanning 4 decades and over 80 films.
One of the preeminent screen actors of my generation.
Double Academy Award winner and Knight of the Realm. The BBC and BAFTA tribute to Michael Caine. Tonight, 10:35 on BBC One.
Take 2 designers, a pub, a couple of big strong lads, absolutely no money, and give them an hour-long festive special. Sounds like House Invaders, and that's right now here on BBC One.
There's a traditional Christmas theme on today's House Invaders as we add a Victorian style to a period room.
This is BBC One and the news with Anna Ford.
Good morning. 2 women charged with the attempted murder of Danny Herbert have been remanded in custody by Crawley magistrates this morning. The 13-year-old Danny received multiple stab wounds near his home at Littlehampton in Sussex early on Friday. He's now regained consciousness at Guy's Hospital in London. A 26-year-old man has been arrested in connection with the murder of Vicky Hall. The 17-year-old was killed after leaving a nightclub in Felixstowe in September last year. Senior nurses are likely to get pay rises above the rate of inflation as part of the government's attempt to stop them leaving the profession. Hospital staff are expected to receive details of their pay settlement later today, but it's thought less experienced nurses will not get as much as the 5% rise that they'd hoped for. The British Medical Association has renewed its call for boxing to be banned after a fighter was critically injured in a contest on Saturday night. Paul Ingle is in a coma after being knocked out during a world title fight in Sheffield. He's had surgery to remove a blood clot from his brain. 3 towns are celebrating this morning after learning that they have been granted city status. Inverness, Wolverhampton and Brighton have all been made into cities by the Queen to mark the millennium. 39 towns had asked to be considered. That's it so far. I'll be back with more news in an hour.
Hello there. It's a rather cold and cloudy day for today. The mist and fog across eastern areas rather reluctant to clear away, and there could well be some rain just skirting through the channel. Best of any brightness, I think, out towards the west, but very little of that winter sunshine. Shouldn't be quite as cold tonight. We'll see some cloud and rain moving in from the south. As we go through tomorrow, that wetter weather will work its way northwards all the way into Scotland by the end of the day. The wind starting to pick up and turning a little milder. Bye for now.
So, if you can't get to Lou's pub, where's the best night out in Erinsborough? The Neighbours reveal what makes a top night in half an hour here on BBC One after a Crimbo Wipeout Celebrity Special. And Neighbours Revealed is next here on BBC One Daily.
Victoria Wood is having a few friends over on Christmas Day.
Yeah, what was you banging of, I should like to know, as I never say merry at Michaelmas? Our Christmas pudding is down there somewhere, and you can be sure we shall dig till we get it. Cooey! Catherine!
Blackout, rationing, and being in danger of death have been a real tonic to me.
And you're all invited.
The bats are back in the bread bin now, not coming out till New Year's. Promises, promises.
Victoria Wood with all the trimmings, 9:20 Christmas Day on BBC One.
Some things at Christmas are the same every year.
Oh, perfect.
But the food doesn't have to be one of them.
This year I thought I'd show you something just a little bit different.
Roast potatoes have got to be crispy and fluffy, man. You cook it nicely, you can't go wrong.
And now it's time to carve.
Gary Rhodes, Jamie Oliver and a special mystery guest chef on Friends for Dinner host an evening of Christmas cooking, Wednesday from 8 on BBC Two.
Get in and lava now on BBC One. It's Neighbours Revealed.
Hello and welcome to the show.
This Christmas, BBC One has exclusive coverage of the royal family.
Say bye-bye.
Bye-bye, baby David.
Bye-bye, baby David.
Bye-bye, baby David.
Bye-bye, Debra, baby.
The royal family, Christmas Day at 10:10 on BBC One.
This is BBC One in the South. Now the news at 1 o'clock with Anna Ford and Roger Finn.
Damilola Taylor's parents say William Hague's using their son as a political football. Mr. Hague is accused of linking the murder with policing levels. Train companies brace for a week of chaos. Many trains are already full. A strike by hundreds of postal workers threatens Christmas deliveries. Liz Hurley fined £70,000 over strike breaking in America.
In the south, 2 towns become one. Brighton and Hove join together as they're granted city status. But it's disappointment for Reading and other towns across the region as their city bids fail.
Good afternoon and welcome to the BBC News at 1. The parents of the murdered schoolboy Damilola Taylor have accused William Hague of using their son's murder as a political football. The 10-year-old bled to death after being stabbed in the leg on his way home from school in Peckham in South London. The Conservative leader used a newspaper article yesterday to make a link between the attack and the fall in police numbers under Labour.
William Hague believed that by linking the murder of Damilola Taylor near this Peckham estate with a fall in police numbers, he was speaking for the whole community. Some living here have sympathised, saying the number of officers in the area has fallen. But the attack on the government has now been undermined by Damilola's parents. Their grief following their son's death has been replaced by anger. In a statement issued through their solicitor, they accused the Tory leader of using Damilola's death as a political football, something the Tories were swift to deny.
I don't think that that is what has happened. I think the concerns that we have been reiterating are those that have been put to us by community leaders and by the people themselves on that estate, and indeed on many other estates just like it, but which have got considerably less attention.
Yeah, okay.
Are you using Damilola Taylor as a political football?
Good morning.
This morning, William Hague left Central Office refusing to comment, but the Tories dismiss accusations that they're playing the race card, or reports that there's been unease inside the party about his recent criticism of the Macpherson report. Downing Street says William Hague has been irresponsible. While the Prime Minister has acknowledged problems with police morale and numbers, a spokesman said any politician should think hard before leaping into a very sensitive murder investigation. Jonathan Beale, BBC News, Westminster.
Neil O'May is the solicitor who represents Damilola Taylor's parents. Mr. O'May, what did Damilola's parents feel about this?
Well, Damilola's parents want the focus of the media to be on the police investigation and the hunt for the murderers. They're very concerned that during this crucial time, and a very difficult time for them, that that focus is changing. And they don't want their case and their son's case and their son's murder to become part of a political bat and ball.
They didn't hear anything from William Hague, apparently. Did they expect to?
They didn't hear anything from William Hague until all the media attention over the weekend. As I say, they're very concerned that at this critical time that everybody is focusing on catching the murderers and not deflecting that police approach.
This is a very important case. Don't Damilola's parents have any sympathy with William Hague in raising the whole problem of the shortage of police officers in that area?
At this time, until the facts are known and the murderers have been brought to justice, they don't want to enter into the political fray. They would like everybody, please, to focus on catching the murderers.
Mr. O'May, thank you very much. The Shadow Home Secretary Anne Widdicombe is in our Westminster studio. Ms Widdicombe, thank you very much for joining us. I've got the statement here made by Damilola Taylor's parents, and they say that they were caused a great deal of distress by the link that William Hague made with this particular political point. It was a mistake, wasn't it?
He did not make that direct link, and I think that the distress they have been caused is therefore unnecessary, though I'm very sorry for them, obviously I am. But what William said was something very specific. He said that the levels of policing, which we saw when Jack Straw visited the Peckham estate, were in no way matched by the levels of policing which there had been in the years preceding those tragic events. That is the point that he was making. You can never link a particular crime to a lack of numbers, and that is the overall point that William was making and that we must go on making.
But I think that point that William Hague was making, in most people's minds, will be a very important point, but it wasn't necessary for him to drag in Damilola Taylor's name.
Well, what he was doing was talking about Jack Straw's visit to that estate and the sudden huge explosion of police activity, and contrasting that with what that estate had had previously, and which of course is also the experience of a large number of other estates to which he didn't refer only because they haven't had anything like the same amount of public attention in this context. That was the point he was trying to make. I think it is a valid point. I'm always very sorry if people in difficult situations are caused distress, but we cannot have, I have to say this, we cannot have no-go areas of public debate. Policing is now a hugely serious issue, and Jack Straw cannot hide from it.
Well, Ms Widdicombe, thank you very much for talking to us. Let's go to our political editor, Andrew Marr, who's at Westminster. Andrew Marr, whether people like it or not, this has now become a political football, hasn't it? Because everybody's jumping in on every side with something to say.
It certainly has, and there's no way to avoid that. Any atrocious murder, whether it's this one or whether it was the Bulger killing or many others, becomes a political issue. Football's a pejorative word in this case. It becomes something that politicians and the rest of us argue about. Is it to do with the moral condition of the country and the schools? Is it to do with numbers of police officers on the beat? These are inescapably political questions. And after all, Damilola Taylor's father, when he first arrived back here from Africa, made the point that as compared with the 1970s, when he'd last been living in this country, there were very few bobbies on the beat, he thought.
Andrew, how much damage has this done William Hague? Because at worst he's been called a racist, and at best it does make him look rather insensitive.
Well, he certainly had a pretty rough couple of days. First of all, that speech on Thursday, and then this has soured relations very badly between Mr. Hague and certain aspects of the black community in London in particular. He hasn't been able to get the message out as clearly as he hoped, and it's this business of the specific and the general again. It's fine to make general points, but politicians should always beware when they engage in a specific case, particularly something as traumatic as a murder like this, is everybody involved most closely aware of what they're going to say and at least, if not on side, prepared to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Andrew, thank you very much. Train companies are bracing themselves for a difficult time as one of the busiest weeks of travel gets underway. Railtrack has promised to put on extra staff at major stations, but there are warnings that many trains at the weekend are already fully booked. And with more people choosing to travel by car and coach, motoring organisations say the roads will be exceptionally busy too. Here's our transport correspondent, Simon Montague. Simon.
The advice really is quite simple. Don't leave it to the last minute if you're hoping to travel by public transport this Christmas. It's long-distance trains which are under the most pressure. Great North Eastern Railways is worst affected with just 40% of normal services. On Saturday, some trains from London to Scotland are already full. And First Great Western is running only 80% of services to South West England. Again, some Saturday trains already booked out. And on Virgin, London-Manchester trains will take an hour longer, London-Glasgow trains 2 hours longer than normal. At Birmingham New Street this morning, some passengers already had other plans in place.
Well, I normally travel by car and I will be over Christmas because where I've got to go to, it should just take me hours to get there by train.
You have to take potluck, but I'm lucky I have both train and bus pass.
Rail executives turned out at London's King's Cross this morning to strongly recommend that people book in advance.
There are some seats available, but you may have to take whatever is offered to you. Obviously, trains are getting booked up, so the message is book now.
Well, for some people, the rail problems are making other forms of travel more attractive. British Airways, for instance, has laid on 12,000 extra seats on domestic routes. Bookings, they say, are up 9% on last year. And coach company National Express says bookings are up 15 to 20%. But as most people will go by car, the roads will be busy too.
Well, obviously traffic is going to be very busy. There are going to be thousands of extra motorists on the road because of the state of the railways. But I think the one saving grace is that because Christmas Day is on the Monday, people have got Friday to get away, Saturday to get away, and Sunday. So if people do stagger their journeys, it will help. But obviously on Saturday, there'll be extra people out there doing their last-minute shopping, which will also cause congestion.
Well, I guess it shouldn't be impossible to get to where you want to this Christmas, but the message is think about it now rather than later. Anna.
Thank you, Simon. For thousands of students, the Christmas rush has already begun, with many travelling home for the holidays over the weekend. Our correspondent Andy Tighe travelled with one student who had to take the lengthy trip from St Andrews to London.
This is the start of Chetan Mujaria's 450-mile journey home after the long winter term at St Andrews University. Other students live nearby or have been picked up by their family. Chetan has to take the train, on a part of the network running just 40% of its normal Christmas timetable. Almost immediately we hit trouble. This should be a direct service, but at Edinburgh we're ordered onto another train where we don't have reservations. Eventually we manage to find seats, but it's crowded and it's delayed by half an hour. This isn't the kind of journey that anyone wanted. We're late, there are people standing up and sitting in the doorways, and we've just been told that the train we should have been on has been sent back up the line to the north of Scotland.
I went to the trouble of reserving a seat on the train from Lucas to King's Cross, supposedly. It took me 20 minutes on the phone to reserve my seat, and now it's just off to Edinburgh. Scramble for the seats. Quite lucky I got this one.
Chetton's ticket, even with a student discount, cost him more than £50, and there aren't many affordable alternatives.
I was umming and ahhing about whether to go by plane. I was discussing it with friends, and most of my friends have actually had to go by plane, which is a lot more expensive, but they've just had too much, travelling around on trains, getting stuck for hours.
It's already dark as we approach London. The emergency timetable has put an extra 2 hours onto our journey.
I've been on the train for 8 hours now, so I'm feeling pretty tired. This whole train experience isn't really worth it. I think I'll fly back at the end of Christmas, if I've got enough money, of course.
Many more travellers are likely to draw the same conclusion over the coming week. Andy Tighe, BBC News, King's Cross Station in London.
The chances of receiving all your Christmas post on time receded further today, with hundreds of postal workers going on strike over pay. The dispute will add to the delays already being caused by the disruption on the railways. Our correspondent, Stephen Evans, is at a sorting office in South London. Steve.
This is obviously the busiest time of the year. 200 million letters, cards, packets posted every day. 3 million in this sorting office alone. So clearly they've got to shift them through as fast as they can. Now, obviously, if there's trouble in one sorting office like Coventry, then it's a difficulty that ripples out to other sorting offices. Now, this difficulty in Coventry isn't the first trouble the post office has had. Today's strike is the latest in a rash of unofficial strikes. Cardiff, Belfast, Edinburgh, Glasgow and Oxford have all been hit in separate walkouts. The cause is different each time, but the background remains the same. Grumbling discontent with pay negotiations underway. It all adds up to a headache for the post office as it tries to move a mountain of Christmas mail.
We have got, it's fair to say, too much unofficial action over the last few weeks, and we're talking to the union about dealing with that. At the moment, we've got a couple of small disputes locally in Coventry and one in West London. They're just 24 hours and they won't affect the Christmas post really at all.
The post office has also been badly hit by the chaos on the railways. It's had to hire in extra lorries and aircraft because its travelling post offices have faced delays, and even a short delay means connections being missed. Part of the post office's problem is that the union is perhaps the only union to come out of the great changes wrought by Lady Thatcher with its strength undiminished. It means unofficial strikes, lightning walkouts unsanctioned by the union, are a way of life in most big sorting offices. There's probably more trouble on the way. Now, the difficulty is, Anna, that nobody quite knows where the next one will be. The nature of these strikes is they erupt, they get settled, they go quiet, and another one erupts elsewhere. Part of the problem is that there may well be union elections, and everybody is trying to look tougher than the next man, if you like. So, we don't quite know where the next trouble will be, but more trouble is expected.
Steve, thank you very much. Oil companies are to invest £1 billion in the North Sea. The move is expected to create a safeguard 2,500 jobs in Scotland and the north of England. There'll be 3 new production areas west of Shetland, as well as a deep-sea gas pipeline. And the construction will mean work for the Swan Hunter Yard on Tyneside. So Alan Sugar, the chairman of Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, is selling his 40% stake in the club. Negotiations are taking place with a number of potential buyers. They're thought to include the ENIC investment company, who already own a stake in Glasgow Rangers. Liz Hurley has been fined $100,000, nearly £70,000, by the American Screen Actors Guild for filming an advert during a strike. The actress, who was called a scab by protesters at the US premiere of her latest film, claimed she knew nothing of the ongoing dispute over pay. Ms. Hurley said she was disappointed by the union's decision, but has agreed to pay the fine.
Liz Hurley has been left in little doubt about what the unions think of her. At the US premiere of her film Bedazzled in October, members of the Screen Actors Guild were out in force. They described her as a scab because they say she worked during a strike. At the time of the demonstrations, she said she was being treated unfairly.
It's very sad for me because, of course, they are my union, and I actually do support the strike. I wouldn't have dreamt of working had I known there was a strike. But, you know, the fact is I didn't know. You can't rewrite history. There's nothing I can do. I've apologised for saying I'm sorry I didn't know, but, hey, I live in England. What can I do? I didn't know. My advertising agency was very remiss in not telling me, but the fact is they didn't.
The strike was by actors who appear in commercials. It lasted more than 6 months, but is now over. Other celebrities like singer Britney Spears and the golf star Tiger Woods broke the picket lines and have been fined, but less than Liz Hurley. In a statement, Miss Hurley says, "I hope that by paying the fine imposed, rather than appealing the decision, I will be helping the families of Guild members who were harmed by the strike and are in need of assistance." Paying the fine means she's free to continue working in Hollywood. That could have been difficult if the Actors Guild had thrown her out. Richard Bilton, BBC News.
And the time's nearly 17 minutes past 1, and later in the programme, sport or barbaric spectacle, boxing comes under the spotlight again. And marrying Madonna, Donna prepares for its wedding of the year. As the boxer Paul Ingle lies in hospital in a critical condition, the safety of boxing is again under the spotlight. Ingle has undergone surgery to remove a blood clot from his brain after being injured in a fight at the weekend. The British Medical Association leapt on the incident to renew its call for boxing to be banned, but supporters argue it's safer than many other sports.
Boxing is still reeling today from the injuries inflicted on Paul Ingle, as there are renewed calls for the sport to be banned. Ingle collapsed onto the canvas in the 12th round after coming under a hail of blows. He'd already been knocked down the round before. He was immediately rushed to hospital after treatment in the ring. The latest report from the Royal Hallamshire Hospital in Sheffield indicates that Ingle, who's in a drug-induced coma, is in a critical but stable condition. A spokesman at the hospital said he's under sedation so the trauma can be contained. In gyms and training halls, experienced boxers say that no other sport gives the advantages in terms of training and character building that boxing does. And they argue that to ban boxing would not stop it happening illegally, where safety standards would be far worse.
It's got a great future and it's had a very big sort of historical past. It's very good for young kids, boys and even girls these days. It's a good form of fitness, conditioning, as well as those people that want to get in the ring and actually spar and go for titles and fight. And relatively, there's very few injuries.
And I think eventually people will say, yes, enough is enough. The problem is it'll move underground. There'll be no protection. There'll be less people doing it. But the people who are doing it will be hurt a lot more.
Opponents say there is no such thing as a safe form of boxing.
So it comes down to a moral argument. On the one hand, is boxing simply too barbaric for the 21st century? Or on the other, if by banning boxing, would you drive it underground and simply make the situation worse? Adam Maynott, BBC News.
So how dangerous is boxing? A short time ago, I spoke to Spencer Oliver, who himself had surgery to remove a blood clot from his brain when he collapsed during a bout at the Royal Albert Hall 2.5 years ago. Spencer, who's now a trainer, was at Saturday's fight, and I asked him whether he thought it should have been stopped earlier.
I felt that he got floored heavily in the 11th round, and I felt that they should have pulled him out then, but he was, I mean, it's a difficult one for the corner to say, because the corner are asking him if he's OK, he's saying he's OK, it's his world title, so they've got to let him out and try and keep it. But I think that maybe it's the doctor's duty in the corner to overrule anybody and say, no, you're not good enough, you look too bashed up, you're not going to win the contest, and let's pull you out. I mean, there's something maybe that could be done to make the sport safer.
2.5 years ago, you were in a coma for 4 days. It is a barbaric sport, isn't it?
People would say that, yeah, but it's that element of risk, I suppose, that keeps people interested in it. I mean, that's the bottom line of it.
What happened to you?
I had the same as what's happened to the most recent fighter, Paul Ingle. I had a blood clot on the right side of my brain form in defending my European title in May of '98. My love for boxing is still there. It's still as strong as a week before the fight. People may think that that's a bit crazy, but you can't take that out of someone. I think once you love it, you love it. But there is that element of risk there. That's what makes it exciting. There is that element of risk in every sport.
But don't you think that it should be banned for the sake of the people who are so badly injured? I mean, you've got a son, a small boy of 5. Would you let him go into boxing?
If he come to me and said, Dad, I want to box, then obviously I'd let him try it out. But it's not something that I'd want him to do, because I know the hard life that it brings to it. But you've got to remember, boxing comes from these kids that get into boxing, the majority of them anyway, come from, you know, rough backgrounds or have got nothing. So really, boxing saves more lives than it takes.
Final deliberations over the future of the National Lottery began today in preparation for the decision on who will run the game for the next 7 years. Sir Richard Branson's People's Lottery has discounted press speculation that they've lost to Camelot. Here's our business correspondent, Greg Wood.
It raises millions every week, but the decision about who runs the lottery has turned into an amateur farce. Back in August, the people running Richard Branson's People's Lottery were celebrating what they thought was a clear-cut victory.
We were told effectively back in August that, subject to us sorting out a number of trust funds, ours was the better bid, and therefore the licence would be ours. It would be quite extraordinary were a new view imposed.
But Camelot, under its chief executive designate Diane Thompson, has made a stunning comeback after the High Court overturned a decision to exclude Camelot from the bidding process because of concerns about one of its partner companies. Dame Helena Shovelton, head of the Lottery Commission when it made its original choice, resigned after the court case. She may not be the only casualty of the process.
It's an extremely difficult decision for them because they've had to set aside the decision that has been made public that they thought Branson's bid was better and really revisit both bids on an equal footing right from the beginning. It's a no-win situation. Nobody wants to be in their shoes, and I really think that we're looking at them resigning after the decision's made.
The Lottery Commission's not due to make a formal announcement about who's won until tomorrow or Wednesday. But whatever the outcome, the whole process of choosing a lottery operator has been shown to be highly unsatisfactory. Greg Wood, BBC News.
2 women have appeared at a magistrate's court in Sussex, charged with the attempted murder of 13-year-old Danny Herbert. Danny was attacked in Littlehampton last week. His family moved to the area recently from Dundee, where they'd been victims of racial abuse. Danny is under heavy medication and in a critical but stable condition.
The 2 women were dealt with together at Crawley Magistrates Court. Lorraine Ann Large, who's 21, and a 17-year-old who can't be named for legal reasons, are charged with attempting to murder Danny Herbert. The 13-year-old was found unconscious in a Littlehampton park in the early hours of Friday morning. The 2 women spoke only to confirm their names and ages. Lorraine Large showed very little emotion, but the 17-year-old sobbed throughout the hearing. They'll both be remanded in custody until they appear again on Friday. Police spent the weekend carrying out a fingertip search of the area where Danny was found. He was surrounded by glass and had 25 stab wounds to his head, throat and stomach. He's now regained consciousness but remains in a critical condition in Guy's Hospital in London. His mother's by his side. She said the family only moved to Littlehampton from Dundee in September because of racist abuse. Police are also at the hospital. They hope when Danny is well enough, he'll be able to tell them exactly what happened. Helen Callaghan, BBC News, Crawley Magistrates Court.
George W. Bush is in Washington for the first official meetings in preparation for his inauguration as president. He'll be having breakfast with Alan Greenspan, the chairman of America's central bank, the Federal Reserve. Mr. Greenspan is known to have doubts about the new president's plans for massive tax cuts. Madonna is due to arrive in Inverness any moment now, ready for her wedding later this week. She'll marry the British film director Guy Ritchie at Skibo Castle on Friday, and preparations are already well underway. Our correspondent Carol Jones is at Inverness Airport. Carol, has she arrived yet?
No, she hasn't, Anna, but she's due in about 10 minutes' time, we've just been told. The plane will land just over my left shoulder on the tarmac behind me, and hopefully we'll be able to see Madonna and Guy Ritchie and her daughter Lourdes and their son Rocco getting out. And then a Land Rover from Skibo Castle, where she's getting married on Friday, will come onto the tarmac and whisk her away up to Skibo without a police escort. The police tell she's not getting any preferential treatment. She's been treated like any other ordinary person, but of course she's not. And that's why there's over 100 press camped out here waiting for her arrival.
And we hear there's a lot of enthusiasm locally in Dornoch for this wedding.
Yes, indeed. Dornoch is not unused to celebrities drifting around the town because of the proximity of Skibo Castle, which is a Highland retreat for the rich and famous. So they're used to the likes of Catherine Zeta-Jones and Michael Douglas, who've played golf there, various top golfers. So they're quite relaxed about it all. But the town is really a town under siege because the world's media has descended. It really is going to be a media circus. All the hotels which had shut up for the season have had to reopen. So it really is going to be quite an event for this small Highland town.
Well, thank you very much indeed. It's a big day for the people of Brighton and Hove, Wolverhampton and Inverness. Their towns have been declared the winners of a competition to gain city status to mark the millennium. They beat over 40 other entrants for the honour, but there is some consolation for the losers. They can try again in 2002.
Everybody, I'm Dick Whittington.
This year's Panto in Wolverhampton is celebrating the wrong city altogether.
London is summer, lots of rain, but please don't blame.
But members of the cast at the Grand Theatre, Wolverhampton, were giving this town, now city, the thumbs up, even before the official announcement.
Wolverhampton, I love it.
But whether Wolverhampton Wanderers will now change their name to City remains to be seen. Wolverhampton joins Brighton and Hove, adjoining towns and long-term rivals who've also mounted a successful campaign for a competition that was announced 2 years ago and has taken a year for the winners to actually come to light. With nearly 40 entrants throughout the UK, the desire for city status appeared to surprise the government, if not the competitors.
It says we really are a city. You know, for a long time you thought we were, but actually here we are. It confirms our confidence and pride in ourselves.
Inverness, once the capital of a Pictish kingdom, is the single winner from Scotland.
I think it's wonderful news. It should have been declared many, many years ago.
It's great news. It's brilliant news, puts Inverness on the world stage,
But today's announcement has caused some of the dissatisfaction the government was keen to avoid.
We're very disappointed that not only have we not been selected, but nowhere in Wales has been selected.
However, there is a second chance. Royal city status will be bestowed once again in 2002 to mark the Golden Jubilee of the Queen. Maureen McLean, BBC News.
At 27 minutes past 1, the main news again. The parents of the murdered schoolboy Damilola Taylor say William Hague has used their son as a political football. Mr Hague is accused of linking the murder with policing levels. In a moment, the latest from the BBC News teams across the United Kingdom, but that's all this Monday lunchtime from the 1 o'clock news. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Well, I have to say the fog has lingered a lot longer than I thought it would across eastern England and the Midlands. Yesterday I thought that this weather front would help clear that away, but as you can see that weather front has ground to a halt and it really just broke up as well, which meant that the fog is still lingering. Down to the south we've got this area of low pressure and its weather front's getting some rain in the south, and we've also got a weather front close out to the west that may give 1 or 2 showers in the west of Scotland. But let's concentrate on that fog first of all. This is Birmingham and you can see the picture I mean, really misty and foggy here. The visibility has picked up in the last couple of hours, but there's still quite a few areas as you head into eastern England where the visibility is around 100 metres, and with it the temperatures in 1 or 2 spots are below freezing, so it is pretty treacherous out there if you're out and about this afternoon. What a contrast as you head further west though. We pick up the milder weather. In Cornwall temperatures are in double figures. Well, as you can see we've got a lot of cloud shrouding the United Kingdom today. Down to the south this cloud is thick enough to give rain across the south coast, and some of that will work its way into the southeast during this afternoon. Out to the west there may just be 1 or 2 showers, but I think out here probably the best chance of the brightest weather right the way down into Wales and into the west of Cornwall. The temperatures today then really struggling where we've got that fog, probably only +2 or +3 if we're very lucky this afternoon, but out to the west that mild weather nearer 7 to 8 degrees. Now the reason the fog is lingering is that we've got very light winds as you can see at the moment, but as we head through tonight the winds will start to pick up from a southerly direction in the southwest, and we will find some rain working its way in as well. So by the end of the night that rain heading its way towards Cornwall then. Elsewhere tonight a very cloudy night except in the northeast of Scotland where here it could turn misty and foggy, and it will so be chilly, temperatures down to around freezing. But elsewhere tonight I think those temperatures will be higher, around +2 to +6, and I think on this eastern side we might see the fog lifting towards dawn as those winds pick up. Into Tuesday we've got weather fronts to the south and the west. That's where we're going to see the heaviest, wettest weather then. That rain moving its way up the western side during the day and coming a little bit further eastwards as well. Shouldn't be quite as cold, but with the winds picking up, certainly if you're out and about you will notice the chill in that wind. Into Wednesday the weather front's still down the western side of the United Kingdom, so some more rain to come here. But on the eastern side we might begin to see somewhat brighter and sunny weather coming into the southeast. And on Thursday the rain stays in the north with that weather front. That's all from me for now.
This year, for the first time ever, the BBC will join the royal family as they celebrate Christmas at Sandringham. with a sermon by the Archbishop of Canterbury, carols and hymns. Join morning service from Sandringham, live at 10 to 11 Christmas Eve morning on BBC One.